More tales told by a Dubliner. By Turlough Conmee. Story number 5. The Soul Donation Programme. I had had some trouble with angina, going up hills and long flights of stairs, and the upshot of it was that the cardiologist told me I was going to have a bypass to fix the problem. Now, I hadn't been in hospital for surgery since I was a chiseller, and I still had bad dreams and worse recollections of it. As for surgery, I knew it was no joke, and I also remembered the story of Puccini dying on the operating table, and him not able to see the curtain rise on his last and greatest opera. So I asked the cardiologist, "How's your success rate?" "Pretty good," he said. "Sometimes we may lose a patient in the process, but it's rare enough. The surgeons know all the tricks, and they watch you like a hawk. People who have had the job done usually feel much better for it afterwards." So I let myself be persuaded, as otherwise I'd be in danger of real heart problems. Now, I didn't relish going into hospital, but I was soon ensconced in a room there, and the surgeon came to see me and talk about the operation, which was scheduled for 3 days hence. He got me to sign a paper saying that I knew the risks involved. "By the way," said the surgeon at the end, "have you signed an organ donor card?" I said no. "Well," he said, "I wish you'd consider it. Not to be morbid or anything like that, but there is a risk to this operation, as you know, and if something did go wrong and we lost you, we could certainly do with your internal organs. The kidneys most of all, then the liver, the pancreas, and even the lungs." "All right," I said, "you can have them if they're any good to you." "We always have patients waiting for them. That's just why we have this organ donation programme. Any of the patients around Dublin waiting for a transplant would be more than glad of them, I can assure you." "Good," I said, although the prospect didn't enthrall me if I was honest about it. Altruism has its limits. "By the way," said the surgeon, more cautiously now, as if straying onto more difficult territory and not sure what reaction he was going to get, "there's also a soul donation programme. It's new." "A what?" "A soul donation programme. You can donate your soul as well as your organs." "Go with that," says I. "No, I'm serious," he said, with something of an embarrassed laugh. "In the world of today, many people don't believe they have a soul, but we can use them." "How?" "Well, not right away. We intend to keep a registry of them, a sort of soul bank. Since there's nothing tangible involved, you just have to sign your soul over to the hospital, in the event of death. You don't have to sign in your own blood or anything like that." He laughed again. "So why are you collecting souls? What's the idea behind it?" "Listen, there's such rapid progress in medical science that soon we'll have people with most of their organs replaced. If they all come from one donor, or even if they come from several, there's likely to be a loss of identity. So they should have a new self, a new soul." "You mean the transplanted organs might take away their sense of self?" "That's it. Just as the body's immune system is likely to reject strange organs, the organs are likely to be in conflict with the sense of self, the mind, the soul, whatever you like to call it. If the patients have a new soul, that would resolve the issue and they could make a fresh start." "So that's why you're harvesting souls as well, eh?" "Right, and there's another reason too. This organ transplant business that we do is really just a stopgap for want of something better. I mean, We don't like hovering around like ghouls, waiting for fellas to die so that we can whip out their organs while they're still fresh. And it's always such a rush to find a suitable patient on the list and bundle them over here so we can do the job. Because, you know, an organ is only fresh for 6 hours, or 24 hours at the most. After that, it's not worth a damn. So it's always a bit hectic, I can tell you. Now, this can't go on forever. And that's where pigs come in. Pigs. Aye, pigs. Genetically engineered pigs. They're getting to the stage where they have laboratory pigs with human genes in them, and they can provide hearts, livers, kidneys, and what have you that humans can use without rejecting them. And now, there's another argument for soul donation. With several pig organs in them, patients would become more and more swinish and would be in danger of losing their humanity. A new soul could work wonders there, as you can appreciate. So it sounds to me like medicine sees the need to keep people human in spite of all the advances and all the interventions in their bodies. You medical bios have rediscovered the soul, while everybody else seems to be giving it up. Aye, he said, but medical men have always been concerned with the soul, where the body left off and the soul began. In particular, where in the body the soul resided. First, they thought it was in the heart, because when the heart stopped beating, you were a goner. Then they decided the seat of the soul was up in the brain, since your thought and feeling, what made you human, was always affected by a whack on the head, causing an injury to the brain. At the same time, the anatomists made it quite clear to the clergy, God bless them, that the soul was beyond the reach of the scalpel. But then anatomists and doctors decided that it was nowhere in the body. In other words, that we had no soul to speak of. Now the soul is making a comeback in medicine. We use the word soul not to mean an ethereal thing hiding somewhere in the body, but that essence of being human, a particular human, that we can't afford to lose, even if our bodies are getting bits and pieces added to them ad infinitum. Our dream is to graft a new soul onto all of that, to hold it all together. So now you have to persuade people to donate their souls to other bodies, as if they were an extra organ. Right, said the surgeon. In days gone by, that wouldn't have gone down well, for people believed their soul was their dearest possession. But today it's different. Look at Ireland, how secular the country has become. Most people would no longer think they have one, a soul I mean, or that it's any use to them if they do. So why not just donate it hypothetically, like any other organ, when you die, if it's something of no value? Well, in the old days, I said, you could sell your soul to the devil. It had a price. Indeed. Then you are pledging yourself to eternal damnation in exchange for 7 years, or 20 years, or whatever it was, that the devil had to serve you in this world. You could eat, drink, and be merry. There was no doubt your soul was going down below at the end of it all. So it was a quid pro quo. Your soul in exchange for a fixed period I live in, right? But this soul donation program of ours is altruistic. It's like giving an old computer to the recycling. You don't get anything for it, but you know the product is going to be recycled for a new use. So you think you can recycle everything, even souls? Because people can be recycled in the sense of fitted out with new organs, and thus given a new chance at life thanks to medical science, so too souls can be recycled to meet the needs of this new race of recycled human beings. Still in all, says I wouldn't be sure if I'd want to give up me soul. I mean, what happens to me when I die soulless? Do I just cease to exist altogether, me organs cast to the four winds, and me soul too? I mean, life is life and death is death. When you cross over from one realm to the other, you need to have your physical and spiritual resources decided. I remember Daniel O'Connell had the right idea. In his will, as I recall, he bequeathed his soul to heaven, his heart to Rome, and his body to Ireland. Well, says the surgeon, those are philosophical questions for them that want to pursue them. Questions the medical man can't answer. That's more like one for the chaplain. I can tell you, though, he added, that the place of crossing over from life to death is not quite as clear-cut as you might imagine. For example, if we're going to harvest your organs, we can't let you die completely. Not right away. No? What's it like? Well, we keep you in a kind of suspension between life and death. We can do that thanks to the ventilator. We hook you up to that, and it keeps you breathing, or it does the breathing for you, even when your heart and brain have stopped working for good. We need to keep the vegetative functions going, so that we have time to summon the new patient and get those organs from you while they're still living tissue. Because once death sets in, we can't use them. You mean, as the donor, I'd be hovering between life and death till the job was done? That's it, he said. It's only when you've given up your organs that we can afford to release you into eternity, as it were. But if you got me soul too, I wouldn't be going into eternity, would I? I'd still be around, though my body was dead. Ah, well, there you are, he said. That would mean you'd never really die at all, in a sense. You'd be, in some sense, immortal. Well, I find it hard to envisage, I said. Talk it over with the chaplain. He's your man. With that concession, he went off on his rounds. When the chaplain came by on his rounds later in the day, I spoke to him about the topic. He was an ascetic-looking old Jesuit. What about organ donation after death, says I. Is it a good idea? Certainly, he said. We're all for it. Pope John Paul said at one time, quoting the Gospel, "Freely you have received, freely you should give," and applied that to organ donation. In other words, you got your body and your organs for free, so be prepared to give them away if there's a charitable need and the opportunity is there. Fair enough, I said. So I can give away kidneys, liver and what have you with a good conscience? You can. Once the soul has gone on to eternal habitations, is that it? Well, that's a bit of a problem, I must admit. The theological definition of death we have always worked with was when the soul left the body. But now we can't really be sure. The last two popes called scientific commissions to advise them on this, but they couldn't agree on a solution. The doctors talk about brain death and heart death, but these ventilators they use have thrown a spanner in the works. To give up your organs to such an extent that life is no longer possible, you need to be dead and the soul to have left the body. We insist on that. But how can you be really dead if you're still on life support thanks to a ventilator? 'Tis a queer one, to be sure. It all means that we just don't know when life passes over into death. It might be at heart death, it might be at brain death, duly certified, it might be when the plug is pulled on the ventilator. To be perfectly frank, we never did know when the soul left the body. It just happened sometime around death. Or after death. Well, how long after? We've ended up just tossing the ball back to the medical men, and they can't help us because they have no interest in the soul. It's not their department. Most of them don't even believe there is a soul. That's not what I'm hearing from me surgeon. It seems they're getting interested in the soul again. In what way? Well, now they want to recycle it. The soul, I mean. So should I give that away too? No, well, really, the question doesn't arise. You can't give it away. It's you. So I would have thought, I said, but it seems there's now a soul donation programme. He sighed. I've heard some mention of this, though no one whispers anything about it outside the walls of this hospital. It's something the medical men have thought up. Maybe it makes sense to them, but not to me as a man of the cloth. The soul is the core of what you are. You can't give it away. It's inalienable, to use a legal term. It's what goes to heaven, hell, or purgatory when you die. Well, Dr. Faustus sold his soul to the devil, didn't he? That's only a legend, like all the legends of people selling their souls, or bargaining them away, or staking them on something. Usually they manage to cheat the devil with a substitute at the last minute. Hey, says I remember the one about the cat. The devil built a bridge for a convent of nuns, on condition he would get the soul of one of them at the end. So, on the appointed day for the handover, the devil waited on the far side of the bridge for his payment. Out the front door of the convent came the Reverend Mother. The devil smiled. A Reverend Mother's soul would be a good thing to get. But then the sly old nun reached into the folds of her habit and released the convent cat. He ran across the bridge, jumped on the devil's shoulder and scratched his ear. Well, the devil swore up and down, but it was no good. All he got in the end was a cat. Not much in comparison with a soul, agreed the chaplain. What use is a cat in hell? Well, he could be a pet for the damned. A sort of occupational therapy for them, like they have in prisons now. Begod, I'd say they're past occupational therapy down there. Anyway, wouldn't his fur get singed? We looked at each other for a moment. Then we burst out laughing. And did you hear the one about the devil and the 7 scholars? I went on, when I had recovered from me fit at laughing. It seems there were 7 likely young lads who wanted to learn how to cast spells and do magic. They wanted to get it from the horse's mouth. So they asked the devil himself to teach them. He took them on at no fee, but he said that at the end of the course, the last one out the door of the classroom would have to give him his soul. Well, on the last day's teaching they were all nervous enough, and as soon as the bell rang for the end of school, they all bolted for the door without a word of thanks. But of course one had to be last, and didn't the devil collar him? Last one, says he triumphantly, your soul is mine for evermore. Oh, but I'm not the last one, said the sly young fellow. Look, there's still one behind me. Sure enough, the devil could see out of the corner of his eye another human shape behind the lad. So didn't he let him go and grab the other? But it was only the young lad's shadow. Meanwhile, the young lad fled out the door after his comrades. Well, the devil swore up and down, but there was nought he could do. Finally, he called down a mighty curse on them all, and as a result, none of the 7 ever cast a shadow again. Well, said the chaplain after a while, you could be telling stories till you're blue in the face, but in the end they're only stories. Your soul is not yours to give away, much less to sell. But what about freely ye received, freely should ye give? I mean, we don't pay for our soul in the first place, so wouldn't it be arguable that we should give it away in a good cause? Well, you just can't. When you die, your soul has to appear before God and be judged. Then it's heaven, hell, or purgatory for you. But just think about what it would be like if the soul had belonged to 2 people, one a saint and one a blackguard. How could that soul be let into heaven or sent down to hell? And if it went to purgatory, what should the sentence be? Or where should it go? I have it, I said. Limbo. That's been abolished by Pope Benedict. So where do the unbaptised souls go now? The Church just commends them to the mercy of God. Then it could be the same with recycled souls, couldn't it? No, it just wouldn't work. No, it's one man, one soul, And that's all about it. After the chaplain had gone, I recalled how I had visualised me soul when I first heard about the idea from the nuns when I was 5 or 6. I thought of it as a cushion for some reason. A transparent cushion with a purple outline and 4 corners, which left your body when you died and was wafted through starry space to God. Was that what I was supposed to give away now? Hardly. I thought of it more and more as myself, that which is thinking and feeling at this very moment. Or is that what it is? The surgeon reappeared later in the evening. "Did you thrash it out with the chaplain?" he wanted to know. I nodded. "Any good?" "Not really," I told him. "He couldn't tell me much, any more than you could, really. He doesn't know when the soul leaves the body. But he's not in favour of soul donation." "So you won't sign up?" "Well, I still don't know," I said. "I need time to think. I need to consult a higher authority." "And who would that be? Is there someone in this hospital?" "Well, I was thinking about the ancient Romans. For them, not only was there a soul, they also had a genius to go with it. This was a blessed spirit assigned to accompany the soul from birth to death. It gave you advice and guidance when you needed it." "Okay." "The genius stayed with you all your life, and in the end, it conducted you to the other world, Elysium if you were lucky. Every year on your birthday, as a good Roman, you sacrifice cake and wine to him. By the way, if you were a woman, the spirit was a she called your Juno. Anyway, once you were safely deposited on the other side, your genius, or Juno, left you for good and went back into the world of the living, assigned to guide another soul that had just been born." "I see," said the surgeon, a gleam coming into his eye. "So geniuses are transferable from one soul to another?" "That's what they say." "So maybe souls are transferable too, from one person to another?" "I wish me genius was here now to tell me about this," says I. "Give me another night or two to think. And if there's a good dessert with dinner, I'll sacrifice a bit of it to me genius. Maybe he might inspire me with the answer." "Well, I hope it'll be soon. Your operation is scheduled for 2 days from now." He left me the organ donation forms to sign, and the soul donation one too, on the chance that I might become convinced yet. At dinner, I sacrificed half my dessert, which wasn't all that appetising anyway, and muttered a Latin prayer. It was something like, "Veni Spiritus Gentilis et Fer Concilium." Then I lay down for a night's sleep. It's an awful thing to sleep in a hospital. I mean, all them sick and suffering trying to get a night's rest, while shadowy figures and nurses patrol around, keeping an eye on things. But to me it's not just that. It's all the stuff from childhood. I was in hospital and me only a chiseler, and I felt so lost and alone there. And all that clinical white space, and all them things I still dream about. Lights in operating theatres, medical equipment, oxygen tents, the whole eerie business of anaesthesia. So there I was going to sleep in this strange place that had become me eerie dream world, the stuff of nightmares, without me realising it. I fell asleep too. But after a few hours, as it seemed to me, I awoke and had the feeling someone was watching me. I looked up and saw a standing figure not far from my bedside. As I grew more conscious, I saw it was someone on the other side of a large observation window. It was a man, a youngish man with curly hair and a short trimmed beard. At first I thought his torso was bare, but then I realised that he was wearing a close-fitting white jacket that buttoned up to the neck. He stood there and looked in the window at me. He seemed intensely concerned. I, with me reactions muted be sleep, looked back impassively. Then I must have fallen asleep again. I remembered nothing else till the morning light. That day they did some tests on me, and in me bed I was wheeled here and there through endless bright echoing corridors. That night, the night before the operation, I slept rather fitfully. I had dreams too. I dreamed that I'd gone back to me parents' house, the one I had lived in as a small child. The house was empty when I let myself in. I walked up the stairs and across the landing into my old childhood bedroom. I looked out the window and saw someone coming up the front garden path to the door. It was a woman. She stopped, hesitated, and went out onto the street again. Then she looked up at the house, seemingly undecided. I started. It was me long dead mother, but her face was painted white, like a Pierrot. I walked down the stairs, intending to open the hall door and let her in. But as I walked down the stairs, the key was already turning in the lock, and she came in and closed the door again behind her. We faced one another at the foot of the stairs in the almost darkness. She smiled and said, "They wanted me to come. They were concerned about you." It sounded kind and reassuring. I wanted to ask on whose behalf she had come, this they, but I must have drifted into a deeper sleep. In the later watches of the night, I awoke again, and I saw the doctor I had seen the night before, only now he was inside the room. He came and stood by me bed and looked down, full of concern as he had been before. He spoke. "De anima non est disputandum," he said. That is, there could be no disputing about the soul. We proceeded to talk, and indeed our whole conversation was in Latin, or so it seemed to me. "I can't give me soul away to someone else," I said. "My friend, I have accompanied you for so long. My task is to accompany you to the gates of the other world. What you do after that, which way you go, is up to you. I must leave you then and return to this world. I will accompany a newborn soul on its life's journey. It is always so. For be aware that in this hospital that horrifies you so much, there is someone who will not live till dawn, and in the morning a new child will be born." "So souls are unique." "They are." "Listen," I told him, "there was a time when I was convinced that I was unique. There never had been such a one in the world, and there never would be such a one again. Now I know how drearily alike we all are." "Who is we?" "People, the present generation, or all the members of families, going back through the generations. I saw a photograph of my parents' wedding in 1945. It was a group photo. In it was a young woman who, I was later told, was Auntie Carmel, one of the guests. I needed to be told that because as a child I only knew her as an older woman. Long after she had died, I met a cousin of mine in Toronto for the first time, a younger woman. She looked exactly like Auntie Carmel as a young woman. I told her, I've seen a family photograph from 1945, and you're in it. No, says I to him, what do you say to that? We in our profession know the generations. I know your ancestors. I have guided many of them along the way. I see those similarities. I see people who look like one another, but their souls are different. No man walks the same path either. The differences are hidden, even to themselves. You see, you are a soul, or you have a soul, if you like, but it is a secret to you, a fathomless enigma, and will be till the day you die. Only when it quits the body, like a snake that sheds its skin, will you know it as it is. It is a much simpler thing than what you think you are yourself. So it's not me or just me. No, it's not the you that thinks and feels and experiences and remembers. That can die or be lost, or perhaps even consigned to other uses easily enough. But your soul is something at the core of you that you really don't know. It's something purer, like an essence. It has a name that you yourself don't know. And it isn't Turlough Conmee, I can tell you that. So it's me, and it's not me. It's mine, and it's not mine. You cannot fathom it, like I said. That is why I am here to watch over it, as long as you live, and indeed beyond. So I'm to keep me soul, this soul that you're telling me about. You are, and where your soul goes, I go, guiding and healing, your whole life long. Well, how interesting and worthwhile to make your acquaintance, Doctor, I said finally. Shall we be seeing each other again? Yes, one way or another. What do you mean? Assuming you live through the day tomorrow, I will be back to look in on you during the night. Otherwise, I will be guiding you on the walk I spoke of to the gates of the other world. We looked at each other in silence now. Ave atque vale, he said then. Hail and farewell. And I drifted off to sleep as he continued on his nightly rounds. The next day was the day of the operation. Again the wheeling through endless corridors. Then the bright lights in the theatre, the robed and masked figures all around. There you are, said the anaesthetist cheerfully. You won't feel a thing. The next I remember, I was in the intensive care ward, and I drifted in and out of a dreamless sleep. I awoke again at night and looked out across the beds in the ICU. Many of them occupied by patients, and some of them in a bad way, some on ventilators. After a while, I caught sight of a whitish figure walking through the rows of beds. It was the night duty doctor, as I had begun to call him. He looked over at me, and he padded to me bedside. He stood over me. He was smiling. Placet nobis, he said. It pleases us that you decided to stay. Who is we? I asked. That you cannot know yet. You will know it on the other side. Well, I can't know everything, I suppose. You wouldn't want to know everything. You cannot bear it now. Verbum sapienti satis est. A word is enough to a wise man. Are you leaving now? Says I. Yes, but I am always on night duty. He smiled again. Then he whispered, "Vale, farewell," and he was gone. I awoke in my original hospital room. It was daytime. I had no idea how much time had passed. The surgeon was standing beside the bed, looking at me attentively. "Well, that went all right," he said. "How do you feel?" I muttered something garbled. Next day he was back. "Good progress," he said, looking at the charts. "Good recovery." He glanced at the sheaf of papers on my bedside table. "Thanks for the organ donation pledge," he said. "We appreciate it. No go on the soul, though. Wouldn't blame you. It's a big decision." "Well," I told him with a sigh, "I talked it over with that other doctor, the one who was on night duty." "What doctor?" the surgeon asked. "There was no doctor here at night." "He spoke Latin," I said, "as a doctor should, it seems to me, when discussing the last things with his patient." The surgeon looked at me incredulously. "Sure, I'm old enough to remember prescriptions in Latin," I told him. "They always said, 'Recipe, recipe.'" "God love you," said the surgeon. "That anaesthetic is taking a while to wear off." Then he was off on his rounds. You have been listening to the Soul Donation Programme from More Tales Told by a Dubliner by Turlough Conmee. If you enjoyed the stories on this channel, don't forget to like, subscribe and share if you haven't done so already. So, until next time.